Herman. Okay, now before we actually get out onto the streets, I have to warn everybody that there's a lot of cuckoos out on the street. Some of them live here and some of them are visiting. But you know, some of these people, they'll see a big group of folks like you and they'll following a guy that looks like me and they'll figure it out that you're on the ghost tour. And then these people, they think they have an original idea. They think, oh, I should try to scare the ghost tour people. Every night this goes on. Usually they'll drive up and they'll roll down their window and shout out, boo! Or whoo! Or something like that. Yeah.
More for you?
Yeah, and you know, these people are obviously in need of attention, right? So what we like to do is that, especially if they're particularly obnoxious about it, I'll shout, 1, 2, 3, and you shout, you're doomed! And that usually does the trick. A test drive? Okay, I need some help. Can you give me a hand in the right here?
Yes, of course.
Now, I'll be the doofus trying to scare you guys, and you shout 1, 2, 3, and everyone will shout, "You're doomed!" at me.
We're on
okay?
It. We're on it.
All right, I just got out of the frat house down in Key West. First time on a scooter. I just drank 12 beers. Let's see how this goes. Oh, the two of the ghost people. Boo!
1, 2, 3.
You're doomed! Yeah, that'll do it. Looks like it's a crime scene right over here today. Welcome to Mourinhos guest mansion. This was built in the 1890s by Francisco Mourinho. He was a wealthy Cuban cigar manufacturer here in town. Now he and his wife Enriqueta and their 8 children moved into this house. 2 years later, Francisco died mysteriously at a business trip to Cuba. And shortly after that, a woman arrived here in Key West claiming that she was Mrs. Mourinho. She was too. She was wife number 1. This is wife number 2. Uh-oh. Now some people say that wife number 1 found out about wife number 2, had her husband murdered in Cuba, inherited all his things, and then came here to Key West to get the rest of it. And she did. She got the house and the cigar factory. Poor Enriqueta and the 8 children got nothing. They died penniless on the streets of Key West. Now the day they were evicted, the authorities arrived. They're standing right here. A small group of family and friends were standing right where you're standing. Enriqueta came out and addressed the crowd. She said, "You are witnessing a great injustice here today. For although you are removing me from my house, it is rightfully mine. And as God is my witness, I shall always remain here in spirit." Famous last words, huh? Well, now people have seen a woman in white walking back and forth across this balcony up here. So they did some research and they found this picture of Enriqueta Mourinho on her wedding day. I have a copy of it and it's been in my pocket for a while, so it's a little beat up. Pass this around and at some point get it back to me. Now they showed this picture to the people that saw the woman in white walking back and forth, and they said, "That's her. Enriqueta Mourinho." This place used to be called Colors. They changed the name when they found out Enriqueta was still here.
That's crazy.
And there's strange things go on here. If you're sitting in the Victorian sitting room there, you can hear footsteps coming down the stairway. Because it's a guest house, there's a lot of people going out. But sometimes there's footstep noises and nobody's making them. And you know, just inside the doorway here, there's a chandelier. And they say if you have a bad attitude and walk underneath the chandelier will start swinging back and forth. It seems Enriqueta does not like people with bad attitudes staying in her house. These people, 9 times out of 10, they would not stay here. Something strange would happen after they checked in. They'd come down and say, "That's too spooky to stay here, we're leaving." But the nice people, they love it here. They say it's like...
Can you stay here now?
It's like grandma's... Oh, there's many stories. But the guy that figured out the chandelier swinging thing, he worked at the front desk here. And he noticed that it would only start swinging when the pain in the necks would walk underneath it. So after a while, he if he saw that chandelier swinging, he wouldn't bother to finish signing people in. He'd just, hey, why don't you go on upstairs and see what you think? And 9 times out of 10, those people would not stay here. Too spooky up there for them. They had to take off. But the nice people love it here. They say it's like grandma's house. It's like they say that they have a feeling like someone's watching after them, a motherly figure. And you notice the sign says no vacancy. That's there all year round. There's a waiting list of people trying to stay at this place. Yeah, so you know, things do happen here. And for example, the guy staying in room 18, his story was, in the middle of the night, he woke up and there was a transparent woman sitting across the room at the mirror, combing her hair. Well, this made him want to wake up his friend, but the woman turned to him, put her finger to her lips and went, shh. Well, this made him really want to wake up his friend. The woman walked up to him, put her hand over his mouth and said, shh. This made him jump out of bed and shake his friend awake, but she had disappeared.
She warned him.
So yeah, well, if you're lucky enough to stay here, and you're brave enough to stay up in room 18, for God's sakes, be quiet while Enriqueta's combing her hair, okay? And this place is not so much of the reports of her being seen as the effects that go on. Like, for example, the guy there's a story of a guy that used to work here, and a guest complained that there was no fresh towels. So he said, I could have sworn I put fresh towels. I had to go down, and he was out near the pool, got some fresh towels, was walking back with the towels. Said, I got your fresh towels right here. I don't know what happened to him. Must have been Enriqueta Marrero must have taken your towels. And right after that, he just like fell into the pool. Now the people that saw that said, I could have sworn it looked like you were pushed right in. So they say, don't blame Enriqueta for bad things happening here. Because she'll get, and actually when people are sitting out here, it's interesting because they will add extra stories. They'll tell you what went on just in the last weekend. We're going to continue at the old courthouse right over there. Whoa. Follow the light, Sherilyn. Follow the light. Line from the photo. Oh, that's in your fault. You just picked an interesting spot right there.
Do you want me to say 1, 2, 3?
No, but just tell me, how does your neck feel?
Not bad.
A little sore, a little stiff maybe? Do you know that 47 people were hung by their neck until they died right above where you're standing?
Right.
This is where the gallows were. They had a temporary platform that went right up to here. And then they had a rope that came down with a noose on the end. They'd put that noose around your neck, release the trapdoor under your feet, and down you go and hang by your neck until you're dead. How does your neck feel now?
I got a
little loose, huh? Oh, why don't you have a seat? Everyone have a seat on the stairs.
Yes.
I'll tell the next story.
If I sit down, I won't get up.
Back in 1921, there was a man on the island called, they was known as El Islano, which means the islander in Spanish. His family was from the Canary Islands, just off the coast of Spain. They brought him here when he was a little kid. When he was an adult, he owned a bar in this neighborhood called the Red Rooster. And back then, this was a really rough neighborhood. This was all in here. It was full of gambling halls and brothels. And the islander, his name was Manolo Cabeza. He was also known as the Robin Hood of Key West, because he would often go into one of these gambling halls and see a bunch of scoundrels gambling away all kinds of money, and he'd go and take that money right off the table and go give it to the poor. And nobody messed with him because he was one tough hombre. But I'm sure he made some enemies by doing this, among them members of the Ku Klux Klan. those of you that don't know who these guys were, they wore white robes and pointy white hats and masks with 2 eye holes, so they couldn't see who they were. They had goofy ideas about the way that society should be run and very violent methods to convince people to do things their way. Well, this was 1921 after all, and there was the Ku Klux Klan here. Now, Cabeza happened to be married to a beautiful young woman named Angela. Now, it just so happened that one of Angela's parents was black and one of them was white. Oh, the Ku Klux Klan took offense to this. They said, "How dare he marry that mulatto girl? That is an affront to society. We won't have that here in Key West." So they went after Cabeza and they beat him up. They beat him really badly. And they took him to the other side of town where White Street is today, just a mile that way. And they took him out to the outskirts of town, and then they tarred and feathered him. And they told him never to come back into town. And they left. Cabeza didn't listen to them. He managed to limp his way home. He had broken bones and part of his liver was damaged. But, oh, was Angela upset about this. Now, some people say Angela's grandmother taught her voodoo. And that night, she sacrificed a chicken. She cut its head off and poured blood over the bones. And she cursed. She said, "A violent death to all who have harmed my husband." Well, when Cabeza got better, he went out looking for one of the guys that beat him up. He managed to grab the mask off of one of the Klan's members in the fight. And he went after William Decker, went to Decker's house, but Decker wasn't home. According to the newspapers, that it was Christmas Eve and Decker had been out shopping and he bought a Christmas turkey, and when he was on his way home with it, when the Islander spotted him from the back of his taxi cab, saw him, had the cab turn around and pull up right next to Decker's car, and he leaned out the window and pulled out his pistol and said, "Decker, this is how you kill a man," and shot him right in the face. Decker's car went swerving off the road, hit a pole over in front of the old Cuban club over there on Duval Street. And, well, he was dead. That was the end of his Christmas celebration. And it didn't take the cops long to find out about this. Well, the town was only a mile by a mile. The cops found out real quick. Coconut Telegraph went really fast back then. And of course, you can't have people shooting each other on the face on Duval Street, so the cops had to go after Cabeza. At that point, he was holed up in a building just 2 blocks down that way on the corner. The cops surrounded the building, and cops and a few other miscellaneous guys with rifles. And a gun battle ensued. Inside was Cabeza with his pistol, and outside were all these guys with rifles and who knows what. According to the reports, over 200 shots were fired back and forth. Oddly enough, no one was hurt. Cabeza had to surrender eventually, but he surrendered on the condition that, well, first of all, he surrendered to the deputy, not to the sheriff. He suspected the sheriff was involved with the Klan. And he surrendered on the condition that if he'd be held here in this prison, inside the jail cell here in the courthouse, that he'd be guarded by Marines, not by the local police. So they agreed to this, and then he went. Well, about 1:45, the sheriff arrived. He walked up to the Marines and said, "Boys, it's Christmas Eve. Go on home to your families. I'll take care of things from here." And of course, these young men did want to be home with their families, and so off they went, leaving the sheriff in charge. Shortly after that, the sheriff left. And about midnight, cars started arriving, pulling up in the parking lot with their lights off. And the Ku Klux Klan emerged in force. They broke in here and they beat Cabeza severely. He was probably already dead when they pulled his body through these doors and down these steps, and then they tied his feet to the back of a car and dragged his body all the way across the island to where the airport is today. And then they tied a rope around his neck and hung him from a palm tree. And then they took turns shooting holes in his body. Enola Cabeza, 1921, he's in the cemetery. You can go visit him tomorrow if you'd like. Remember Angela's curse? "A violent death to all who have harmed my husband"? The most notable one was the sheriff himself. He was out by the reef. He fell overboard onto the reef, a big wave picked the boat up and dropped it right on top of him. It ground him up between the reef and the boat. When they pulled him on board, his guts were hanging out, and his leg was barely still attached. He was writhing in agony all the way back to the shore when he died. Another guy was working on the overseas highway. He was using explosives and he was blown up. And another guy was caught in the Metacom hurricane. When they found his body, it was filled with debris sticking in him from every direction. Every single one of these guys died a violent death. Who here believes in voodoo?
I do.
Voodoo? You do too, do?
I do.
Oh. You pray? Oh. Very good. Anybody want to see a voodoo magic trick?
Not really.
Okay, well I'm going to need some assistance.
Tracy.
Maybe somebody in the front row.
Go, Tracy.
Oh, Tracy's going to come on.
Tracy wants to do it. I'll help.
Tracy the skeptic.
No, not the skeptic. She is a voodoo person.
She's the voodoo practicer. Or maybe you know this one. Tracy, hi Tracy. No, we've never been formally introduced. Here's, no, this is for you and this is for you. Now, let's say that you are coming to me, the voodoo witch doctor, and you want to know if you have been cursed, okay? How do we know if, Tracy? Is it Tracy?
Yes.
Tracy, how do we know if Tracy's been cursed? She's got a black spot on her hand. Do you have a black spot on your hand, by the way? Oh, no, don't make one. Do you or don't you?
She does now.
No, she does now on her left hand. Okay. All right, you ruined one hand. All right, she does not have a black spot on her hand, so draw me a black spot on that piece of paper, would you? Black spots. Back in history, that's how you could tell if someone was cursed. They used that in the Johnny Depp movie. Remember, he was chased by the Kraken because he had a black spot on his hand? That's how they used to tell if somebody was cursed or not. Right? Okay, well, I'll take the pen. I want you to put your right hand right here.
I remember, yeah.
Okay, no spot on your hand? Throw the other. Okay, here's the spot. Put your hand there. Now we're going to take this spot. Take the black spot and I'm gonna light it on fire. And call on the ow! Okay, call on the voodoo spirits. Come, voodoo spirits. Put your hand here. To show us who. I'm the voodoo guy. You just be the regular. You can do the voodoo trick next time. Come and show us who is cursed. Okay. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pour the ashes in the back of your hand. And I'll wait till they go out, and I want you to gently rub them around in the back and see. Okay, ready? All right, they're out. Are you ready? It's a little windy. Ready to rub? Ready? Get your other hand over here and pour these on.
Oh, they flew away.
They blew away. And they blew on the ground and ruined the trick.
Not cursed, apparently.
You're not cursed.
Not cursed.
I am not cursed at all. Ladies and gentlemen, I am not cursed at all.
Okay, thank you very much.
Move on.
All right, moving on. I hate when that happens. All right, never mind. Over there, that's a K-pop tree. I'll try to redeem myself with the magic tricks later. Sorry. No, it's the wind. That right over there is a K-pop tree. Now, the ancient Mayans believed that since that tree grows so fast and so tall, it'll eventually it'll eventually grow all the way up to heaven. And they believed that the spirits of the dead would gather around the base of that tree and rest comforted in the arms of the roots and wait for the tree to grow tall enough, and then they climb all the way up to heaven.
Is that a spirit right there?
Oh boy, he's something. Yeah. Now, Strange Key West. That's how you follow the Now the weird thing about that tree is that almost every night when people take pictures of that tree, they capture light orbs on their cameras. Now these light orbs are spherical, they're about this big, sometimes they're about basketball size, sometimes the light orbs are at the bottom of the tree, sometimes they're up in the branches. We're going to continue the tour that direction. This is an opportunity to go over to the tree and take some pictures and see what you capture on your camera.